Good afternoon and welcome to the weekly Lawrence City Commission meeting. This evening we have no recognition ceremonies. And first on the agenda is the consent agenda. All matters listed below on the consent agenda are considered under one motion and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on those items. If discussion is desired, then that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Any items on the consent agenda a member of the commission wish to remove? I have 6. I'm sorry, 10C. Any other items for the commissioners? Any item a member of the public wish to remove from the consent agenda for separate? Step up and please tell me which one that is.
I believe it was it 10B?
Yes, it is, Carol.
Okay.
10B is removed. We'll hear it in a minute, Carol, but
Okay.
okay. So 10B and 10C are removed. Any other items any of the public wish to remove? Okay, those two items are removed from the consent agenda, and in addition to the balance of the consent agenda, the claims shall be included in to vendors, 190 vendors, in the amount of $856,458.66. A motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Amix.
Second.
Dever, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, carries 5-0. First item will be 10, was Carol's 10B, 10B. Staff, please, 10B.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. On October 1st, the Traffic Safety Commission heard a request to prohibit parking along one side of Dakota Street between Louisiana and Kansas. Let me get the excuse me, Louisiana and Ohio. The actually there were two separate requests came in for the same restriction. The Traffic Safety Commission did unanimously vote to prohibit parking on the south side of the street, but only for the first 80 feet east of the intersection, which would basically be over to this sidewalk that comes out of that first house there on the south side of the street. They did receive an email prior to the meeting from the house on the north side of the street at the west end that was opposed to the request. No one appeared, no one from the public appeared at the meeting. There was one commissioner that indicated he was familiar with the area, and he's the one that pretty much made the motion and everything to restrict it, but only for that short portion there adjacent to Louisiana to open up that intersection for cars turning onto and off of Louisiana. Any questions?
Questions for staff? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Member of the public wish to speak to this?
Thank you for pulling the item off the consent agenda. I asked Dave to
Excuse
put
me,
up
will you please state your name for the press?
Carol Bowen,
Thank you,
403
Carol.
Dakota Street. I asked Dave to pull it off the, if we could pull off the consent agenda. The neighborhood was not involved, it was just a local issue. But that one block issue is really a symptom of a larger problem. So I asked Dave to project the entire neighborhood. And what you can see, does this mouse show? Yeah. What you can see here is that I'm looking up here at Vermont. Here's 23rd Street. And we have a bunch of streets that go through to Louisiana. What happens is we have a lot of cut-through traffic. We did a traffic study. The city did a traffic study in 2009. And there was a considerable number of cars speeding over the 85th percentile. And I'm not sure what that means. I just remember that from the notes. So changing traffic on both sides of the streets is not just a one block issue, it's a whole neighborhood issue. What happens is, down here on Ohio Street, oh, this mouse doesn't show a whole lot. Right at this intersection, cars come off of Ohio at a very fast rate. They do not yield. They whip around that corner, and they're irritated because of the parking on each side on Dakota Street. The neighborhood association, because we weren't notified, and understandably so, because it looked like a small issue, we never had a chance to discuss it. I did manage to chat with some of the people who live on that stretch. However, I am not representing them because we did not have a meeting, and we probably could have worked it out if we had had. I don't think they understood that that anyone was looking for input. They are elderly. Some of them don't drive anymore. But if the parking is removed, that's not a temporary thing. If younger people move into those houses, it's going to be a problem because they will have vehicles again. The people on both corners, Louisiana and Dakota, both corners, one of them sent an email, the other one did not. They do not use their driveways. They park on Louisiana Street, or on Dakota Street, because it's too difficult to get it onto Louisiana. So, and the real estate, there's not much frontage there for those homes. So, I guess my question is, first, how far is the setback on that parking? I'm not quite sure I understand that. And isn't there already something in the ordinances that you have to park so far from the corner? Now, vehicles that are not speeding do not have a problem getting through there. We even have a disabled neighbor who has a large van for his wheelchair. He has trouble driving, he does not have trouble getting through that intersection, but then he's not in a hurry.
Carol, sounds to me like you'd like to have some time to work with some of the other members in the neighborhood, to talk to them, see if you can reach a consensus as to what to do. Is that what I'm understanding you to say?
Either that, or if it's a small enough issue, just let it go and not do anything.
Why don't we, what if the commission agreed to continue this item for a month to give Ms. Bowen time to see if there's interest in the neighborhood to form some kind of
Consensus.
agreed upon consensus, yeah.
Mm.
Would that be sufficient? A month?
A couple of months might be better,
Well, we can do 2 months.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Is that an agreement? Okay. Okay. Thank you for
Okay,
coming
thank
down.
you.
Why don't we have a motion to that effect?
Make a motion to. Second.
Cromwell, Amix, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries for 2 additional months. Okay, the next item was the item I pulled off, and that was 10C. Sir?
Okay, also at the October 1st Traffic Safety Commission meeting, the commission heard a request to establish a mid-block pedestrian crossing in the 700 block of New Hampshire Street. No one appeared from the public to speak to this item, either for or opposed to it. The commission unanimously recommended against it, but I think it wasn't because they didn't think it had merits. They were concerned about the removal of parking spaces along the street, which it would take 9 spaces removal to construct that. They were concerned that the person that made the request didn't show up. And then also about 4 years ago, there was a similar request that went through traffic safety and through the city commission and was denied at that time. So there was a motion to deny this request, and it did pass unanimously. Any questions?
And where was this request generated from? Was it from Ms. Winholz?
Yeah, it was a citizen request.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
Well, the information that traffic safety would have had at the time would have included that, knowing that the temporary home of the library is going to be there also, isn't it?
Yes, that was mentioned, but they still denied the request.
Well, that's my concern about this. In fact, those blocks are all 600 feet long. I happen to be in that block, so I'm moving across that very space 2 and 3 times a day on weekdays. And there's a lot of pedestrian traffic there. It's only logical to believe that we're gonna have a lot more with the library. And then you're gonna have some children and some families and a lot more people.
But Mayor, to be able to accommodate the crosswalk and the loss of those parking spaces so that, you know, people will be able to see the line of sight,
Well,
you know,
yeah.
you're at the farthest point, you're 300 feet from the light and 300 feet from the stop sign, so you got crosswalks either end. I think we're fine on leaving it the way it is. Because we need parking.
Yeah.
No, obviously, parking is of a concern. I was looking at it purely from a safety issue.
Oh.
Is that, the design you have here, is that the only type of design that could accommodate the crosswalk? Or are there other areas there that, if we took another
That
look
was
at?
just a concept that we put together. All the other mid-block crossings have bulb outs on them to get the pedestrians out from behind parked cars so that they can see the traffic and the traffic can see them. So in order to build these bulb outs, it does take this much of a bulb out in order to get the street to drain around it. There's no storm sewer in the area. The closest storm sewer is down at 8th Street, so you'd have to, if you put in a storm drain, then you'd have to run an underground pipe for 300 feet on down to 8th Street to take care of that. So the only other way is to build the curbs out so that the water will flow all the way around the bulb out and then on down the street.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Thank you. Entertain a motion to do something here.
Just anything?
I still think there's, I mean, I'll leave it that we don't have to do it today, but I still think you're gonna have some problems as a safety issue with the library. And I think we're gonna be there 18 months, is that about correct?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you wanna do a temporary, or if you can't do a temporary because you have to build it all out to certain specifications. But there's a lot of traffic there right now, pedestrian traffic, and there's gonna be more, so.
I mean, one of the things too, I mean, there's crosswalks on New Hampshire Street that consist of maybe 1 square foot of white paint. Perhaps if you combine the entire crosswalk paint into one, you know, there's nothing left of the crosswalks whatsoever. And on New Hampshire Street, within a block of this site, I know of a couple of them. It's comical. If it wasn't, you know, if it wasn't a tragedy, you know, waiting to happen. But we've got to, I think we do need to watch that we have a crosswalk. The library's protected. We have crosswalks that are there right now that aren't functioning. So we do need to get in. And I know we've got some sort of a plan. We've got the machine. There's so many areas throughout town in the schools that don't have crosswalks going to them that you can see. And a crosswalk that you can't see is not a crosswalk. So.
You?
I was just gonna suggest too that as part of the downtown corridor study that I know we're getting ready to work on, part of that is looking at density. And even the 9th in New Hampshire, I was just thinking, you know, as it comes to crosswalks, they're probably, with density in certain areas coming up, is probably something we're gonna need to just start looking at, is how we're gonna move people with more density
There's one
down
in
there anyway.
800 and the
Yeah.
900 block.
900 with the Arts
Art
Center.
Center, and then the
Yeah.
Farmers Market has
Yeah.
the other one.
There's one at 600 block, or between
Yeah.
6 and 7 too.
Yeah, this is the only block that doesn't have one until you get down to the 1000 block.
Mayor, I was just gonna say that,
Sir.
you know, we don't currently have a mid-block crossing where the library is located right now. So we've got the crosswalk at the 2 intersections, but there's not one that crosses over, you know, right where the library turnout is right now. So I know what you're saying, but it's a pretty good-sized parking lot on the east side of the street, and I'm just afraid to lose 9 more spaces and end up with something that is temporary, meaning the library will be temporarily. I hate to spend the money and time, but I understand the need. I think we've gotten by over by the library without one. I think we could probably do the same for 18 months.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion to deny.
Moved and seconded. Denver, Carter, all in favor say aye.
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 Nay. 4-1 carries to deny. Okay. Okay. Should be the city manager's report.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the commission. Just a few items in this week's report. I have information in regards to the Lawrence Police Foundation and their successful assistance in regards to purchasing some automated external defibrillators. Really appreciate their work. It's a great new organization that I think can really help our police department, certainly generate a lot of goodwill and education in regards to the good work that the Police Foundation accomplishes. I know a number of you all had an opportunity to go to the Valor Awards today at noon, and we certainly were inspired by all the great things that are happening in our police department and fire medical department, also the sheriff's office. Wanted you all to see the update that I am using as I go around and talk to various service clubs and organizations. I've got a slightly different one for city employee groups where I talk a little bit about some of the changes in city benefits, but I think it's a great summary of all the things that are going on here with the city. I cover a lot of different topics, try and hit on the priorities that you all have said and how we're paying attention to them. Also, hopefully, an optimistic forecast about all the great things that are going on in the community. You've got some good PowerPoints there in regards to some of the maps for some of the construction that's going to go on in 13. So I wanted you all to see that. I know some of you all get invitations for those types of groups as well. If we can get you this or something modified accordingly, we'd be more than happy to do that. And then finally, you've got a recap of the Wimbledon Drive water main replacement project that was a major undertaking of the Utilities Department this year, and it just provides a little bit of history on that project. Be happy to respond to any questions that you might have.
Any questions? But a couple of comments, if I could. Yeah, I wanted to also thank the Police Foundation, the folks that established that. And specifically today, I think we heard 2 or 3 instances of the AEDs saving lives, and so that's pretty cool. And I'd love to get a hard copy of the City Hall update as well.
Sure.
One thing, and I noticed it's in there, but if we're talking about infrastructure and getting infrastructure in there at farmland and getting it ready for infrastructure anyway in 2013. Just again, quickly, it's as far as trying to actually being shovel ready for new tenants there.
Commissioner, I think this time next year you'll be driving on the road out there.
So
That's what I'm pushing for, is that we would be able to bid the infrastructure plans in 2013. Yep. January 2013, hopefully. That's what I keep pushing. They sometimes say we've got a lot of issues to work through, which means that we would be able to hopefully start construction there, start dirt moving there maybe in the winter, and then work really hard through the spring and the summer, hopefully get good weather and have things accomplished in the fall. In my opinion, and in talking with the Chamber of Commerce, we're ready to start marketing that property now, and you're going to see more information about those efforts. Diane and Britt have been involved in trying to get that ready as well. Here in the next few weeks, you're going to be setting the bid date for the traffic signal at 23rd and O'Connell. We're ready to start that now. The infrastructure that we would build next year will connect to that. But we're ready to go ahead and get that underway now. That not only helps, obviously, the former farmland property, it also helps the property to the south, which is to be able to move as well, whether it's the residential neighborhoods, the jail, Lawrence Community Shelter and such. We want to get that underway as soon as possible. So we're aggressively moving on that. Next week, you will get on your consent agenda is our plan, because you've got an ambitious agenda next week. On the consent agenda, you'll get the plat, or excuse me, you won't get the plat, you'll get the rezonings for the property. The preliminary plat's been approved by the Planning Commission. We're now moving toward final plat of the property, which would be an item that you all would essentially approve. You approve as the owner, but you're accepting the rights of way and easement dedications on the final plat. So it's been a while coming. This has been the year for planning. We're pretty much done on that. We're now into infrastructure installation and working to get that property ready. So this time next year, you'll be able to drive out on that. And what we hope is that you're also driving to visit one of the new businesses out there.
great, it's exciting. Thanks.
Questions for staff? Okay, thank you for the city manager's report. Next on the agenda will be our regular agenda, and first item is to consider authorizing the mayor to execute the wholesale water agreement with Baldwin City. Staff, please.
Mayor and Commissioners, joined this evening by Chris Lowe, who is the city administrator for Baldwin City. Also, Dave Wagner and Mike Lawless, who've been working on this for a number of months as well. We're pleased to recommend for your consideration the agreement with Baldwin City. We currently have one. This would replace the existing agreement. Some key items to point out. The city treats water, obviously, that we own for city customers, but for our wholesale customers, they own water allocations through the Kansas Water Office in Clinton Lake. So we treat their water in our water treatment plant there on Wakarusa Drive. When that's not operating, we obviously work on water through our Kaw Water Treatment Plant. Baldwin City is our second largest customer, so they're a very valued resource. We've been in discussions with Chris and his governing body and some of his staff members for several months. What we have before you is an agreement that has the modified contract quantities that we believe that we are going to be able to meet, provides for appropriate information flowing to us in regards to their water use. If at some time they no longer have a water right, that is handled in this agreement. If they exceed the water right that they have, that's otherwise handled in this agreement, particularly in regards to the cost of raw water, which currently Baldwin City pays for the water that the city treats out of Clinton. The billing rate follows what we had told you back in the summer in regards to what we were going to propose for our wholesale water customers, which is $291. That is a reduction from the $383 amount. That amount is already factored into our budget for the utility department in 2013. We believe that it's appropriate. We also believe it's appropriate given the fact that Baldwin City has options, and they have explored those options, and we want to be in a position to show them that we can have a reduced rate and continue to be a reliable purveyor of water. The agreement it's a 40-year agreement. It expires December 31st, 2052, which is right after Chris and I get our 85 points in capers. So it is a long-term commitment. We've previously had a long-term commitment with Baldwin City. What we would ask is that after you ask questions and we're able to respond to those, that you would authorize the mayor to execute if you're willing to do so. We're happy to respond to any questions that you have. We are continuing to work on our long-term water and wastewater plans. We'll be talking with you probably here in November and December in regards to some of those additional options that we have. We're trying to give you a number of options. We gave you a couple of options in the summer. One was what we were recommended. It probably was fairly aggressive in regards to its capital improvements. One was a reduced one that really didn't have a lot of forward projects, so we're giving you a number of different options essentially in between. We're looking at perhaps options to stretch some of those projects out so they don't have as large of a rate impact for Lawrence customers. Related to our other wholesale customers, we anticipate that we will continue to have discussions with them, perhaps have modified contracts coming back to you as well. We do plan on charging them the $291 per 1,000 gallons of water, which is what we sent them back in the summer and advised you as well in the summer that it would be at that $291 rate. So we've got, again, staff here. Chris is here as well. We'll be happy to respond to any questions or comments that you might have.
Questions for staff? You?
Yeah, I think this is great, especially the part of getting some predictability in there with the increases not being greater than the average increase of the city's residential customers. And I guess this might be for Chris. I'm curious what, this is not an exclusive agreement though, obviously.
That's correct.
With Baldwin. Any idea what percentage this, of your water that you would anticipate would be coming through? And I'm sorry, I have to come up there to, yeah.
We intend to.
Excuse me, sir. If you'd identify yourself for the press, please.
Sure. Chris Lowe, City Administrator of Baldwin City.
Thank you. Welcome.
The current agreement is essentially an extension of the current agreement, which is where we receive all of our treated water for all of our citizens and for our wholesale customers that then purchase from us as well.
Great, and that's your plan, at least for now, is to continue to pretty well exclusively work with us for your water.
Well, I have to commend Dave and his staff, especially Mike and Dave Wagner, who have been working on this for me for a year. Certainly, I think that they've demonstrated a commitment that they want to be good neighbors, and that and Baldwin City wants to be a good neighbor to Lawrence. So those negotiations certainly addressed some maybe past historical mistrust that I think it has been somewhat alleviated by the really positive process that we engaged in the last year.
Well, it's good to hear. It is a really important relationship, and I think what we're seeing is, you know, as water level with conservation efforts and other things, water usage actually overall is dropping a bit. And we have, you know, there's some fixed costs in our treatment of that. And so having and keeping our big customers loyal is important, and I'm glad to hear that's going in the right direction. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Just one more comment. Dave, thanks. I know that you've been working on this quite a while, and I want to thank you personally, because I know you and I had the opportunity to visit that several years ago, and I appreciate all the work that's been done by you and members of our staff, and obviously with Chris and the city of Baldwin. And I would imagine, you know, we'll have a lot of this good neighbor stuff that's going to happen, because we'll all be in Baldwin this weekend going to Maple Leaf. So, but anyway, I do appreciate the work that we've done, because I do think, as Commissioner Carter said, the predictability of the future and the investment that we've made in our infrastructure and our plant, you know, being able to sell water, I mean, is obviously our goal here. So anyway, thank you to all of you and the work that's been done.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this item?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Katie Walsh. I'm only representing myself tonight. And I apologize, I haven't read the agreement, but I didn't realize it was, did you say a 40-year agreement, Dave?
That's correct.
Okay. This year, the Corps of Engineers dropped the Clinton Lake by 2 foot in order to help barges move down the Missouri. They did it to several reservoirs. I'm sure you all know this. And with the droughts that we're experiencing and the global warming, et cetera, I wonder if that's been factored in. We don't have a crystal ball, but there will come a point where water won't be a moneymaker for us. So I would urge you to include the Sustainability Advisory Board and Baldwin's equivalent in these discussions, and I hope it's a flexible contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, back to the commission for discussion and/or a motion.
Our motion?
Sure.
Mayor, I move to approve the agreement and authorize the mayor to execute the water agreement with Baldwin City.
Second.
Moved by Carter, second by Amix. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thanks to everyone involved in this, and sounds like we have a friendly solution here at long last, to where Baldwin's going to have the city of Lawrence water at a little bit better price. So thank your commissioners for us too. We're pleased for working out this agreement.
I'll do that.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda would be public comment.
It's kind of nice to be able to walk out of these.
Then you can go home now. That's good.
Okay, next item on the agenda then would be the future agenda items.
Commissioners, as I alluded to, we've got a number of items on your agenda for next week. Some of those we're still working on, but we'll persevere and get through that lengthy meeting again. Then on the we skip a week. There's no meeting because it's the 5th Tuesday, and then the meeting on November the 6th. We're going to start early again, like this meeting, because it's the elections.
Okay, but we had talked at staff meeting about starting this meeting next week at 5 o'clock, starting with an executive session.
I think thank you, Mayor, that's a good point. I think we had talked about that. I don't know if that creates a conflict with commissioners, but that'd be my request, if we could do an executive session at 5 o'clock next Tuesday.
There's a number of things to go over in executive session, and we would do that first, and then we've got kind of a lengthy agenda anyway, because of the light agenda tonight, and then the week off the following week. So is everyone okay with a 5 o'clock start? Mike?
Yeah, we'll make it work.
I am.
One sec. Sorry, this is the 23rd, right?
23rd.
Yeah, 23rd,
Yes, works fine for me
Okay.
as well.
You know, I'm sitting here saying it's okay.
Better mark
I
it on
haven't
mine.
looked, but I'm sure.
You said 5 or 5:30? 5?
5 o'clock, we'll probably 45 minutes or an hour, and then we'll have a light lunch, light dinner.
Municipally appropriate?
Yeah, okay, so on the 23rd, we'll start the meeting at 5 o'clock. We'll adjourn into executive session, then the regular meeting will be, we'll continue it at 6:30, same as our regular time. Works. 5 PM next. Okay, anything else on the future agendas?
I did, Mayor, go ahead and schedule times for those meetings from the planning department in regards to occupancy limits and rental licensing there on the November the 13th. You'd indicated that you had wanted those, and we're obviously not going to have a major meeting on the 6th, but we want to go ahead and get a date for that because we're starting to get into the holiday glide path here where we're going to run out of a number of meetings this year. So.
That looks good. Anything else from anybody?
Nope.
Okay, calendar. Commission items. Any commission items this evening?
No, sir.
Okay. Next item would be the calendar.
Invite you all to the United Way luncheon tomorrow.
I'll be there.
Low bid Bob, so.
You and your food.
I have that down as 10 a.m., is that right?
I don't think so.
No, 11 to 1
It's
is
11 to 1.
11 to 1 is the dining time.
That was an early lunch. I'll be there.
You'll be first in line.
You can help carry it in if you want to. Okay, anything else on calendar? All right.
I don't believe so.
And we've just arrived at our favorite time of the meeting. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Dever, Amix, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries 5-0. Adjourned. 2 minutes off.
Thank you. You're on. Good job.
Yeah.
All right, off to